That's officially going live there. Okay, now I think we're live. Yes, I see
Yeah.
it going. Woo,
Okay.
okay. Um, yeah, let me just grab this over here. Uh, and while that's happening, hey everybody, Ben here from Cinderblock Studios, and welcome to a special Monday edition, because I didn't upload on Saturday because I'm lazy, edition of an artist interview. Today I'm sitting down with Tyler Lucas, who some of you may remember from the old YouTube channel Tyler's Art Shack. Some of you also might know him as the creator and founder of Trees to Dreams, a woodworking business. Uh,
Yep.
but Tyler, hi, welcome. Nice to see you again.
Yeah. No, it's been quite a few years since I've talked face to face to you. But I thank you for having me on. It's definitely I know a lot of people are probably wondering what the heck happened to me, and hopefully they'll be able to get some answers as to what's been going on. Not that it's a big secret or anything, but I'm here to talk to you about it.
Yeah. Oh, there's you in this side and that side. Hey, Juanita's here.
Oh wow, yeah, I remember that name.
um, she spins. Awesome. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and dive right in here, I suppose. Uh, so for those of you that maybe don't know who you are, and this little intro hasn't been enough, just give a brief introduction of who you are, what you do, where they can find your work. The way I tend to describe it is: you meet someone on the street and you want to tell them who you are and what you do. What do you tell them?
So, I mean, these days, I tell most people that I'm a full-time woodworker, and this is what I do for a living. And they always ask me, "Well, what exactly do you make? Do you make cabinetry or furniture?" I'm like, "No, I don't do either of those things. I have a very tight niche of making small kitchen-type items, pepper grinders, cutting boards, cheese boards, things like that. Customizable items." And people are like, "And you do a living doing that?" And I said, "Yeah." I'm like, well, it's a very long story, the one that goes back many, many years, and sometimes I go through it with them and tell them, and if they want to know. But just the gist of it is, along with doing a lot of art, which probably a lot of your viewers know me as. High school started a lot of this stuff, so um, that's where I learned woodworking and art at the same time, and I'll give them that brief backstory, but that's basically where I'm at these days is doing woodworking. So I have a lot of different loves in life, and that's two of them for sure.
All right, very good. So that's the brief story. Well, we're gonna go ahead and dive into the bigger story tonight. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of questions.
not a lot. It's little under 2 pages. Um,
So
and spaced out, so it's not that
oh,
long.
okay.
Um, so one I always like to start with is where did you first encounter art? Something you saw as a kid, something that
Yeah.
you remember seeing and be like, that's neat.
So I had to think about this for a second. I'm like, wait, I know this answer, and like I had to think back. My grandmother is what got me into it. My grandmother and my mom and a lot of my aunts and uncles or cousins. We have a very artistically inclined family. My grandmother did a lot of oil paintings back when she was in her 20s and 30s, before she got married and had kids. And then she had a very long period of probably 30, 40 years before I realized that the paintings on the wall, when I would visit her when I was a child, I realized that actually she painted them. And I always asked her, like, can you paint new things? Like, can you do this again? And eventually she did, and I saw her pick up her pastels and her stuff that she had go back from when she was a young artist, and she started up again, and that inspired me to sit alongside her and draw things with her. And so that's what we did back when I was, oh boy, probably 9, 10, 11, somewhere in those years, and in that age range, right about middle school aged, I would say. Or actually that would be elementary going into middle school, but who's counting?
Yeah, of course.
Long time ago, either way.
Um, so that kind of actually did lead into my next question: is kind of what got you into starting to creating? And I guess that really was that sitting down with your aunt and or grandmother.
Grandmother, yeah.
I'm thinking
Yeah, I mean,
my aunt's the one that kind of got me a little bit. So backwards
yeah.
mindset.
I think a lot of us, it's family that is the main driver in what we do in life. If they are inspired by, I mean, not always, but I'd say a good amount of the time.
Yeah,
Um,
a lot of the artists I talk to usually have like a family member or a friend of a family that kind of really kind of nurtured that in them at an early age.
yeah, absolutely, I would say.
Um, so drawing with your grandmother and going into middle school, but gives like, is there a point where you kind of noticed yourself taking it a little bit more seriously than just drawing on the side?
Yeah, that was more in high school when um, I would, in the math class or history class. I mean, I was good at math, but history, I was kind of, I get bored every now and then. Um, and I would start drawing and doodling on the side of my notebooks, and people sitting around me were like, "What are you doing over there?" Like, and I'd show them. And at that time, it wasn't anything representative. It was more abstract. I just did a lot of designs, and they're like, "Wow, that looks really good." And I'm like, "Well, thanks." And I did that for years. I would just draw these big, just nothing. Oh God, I have to go back to all my art terms, which I haven't so many years. It was definitely more abstract than anything like representational of real life. So it was a lot of designs, a lot of, light and dark areas and just different repeating patterns throughout, just a whole big piece. And that's what I did a lot of. And I don't know, I did it for fun. And then people started asking me like, wow, that's good. Like, can I have one? I'm like, yeah, here, take it. I didn't really care. Um, so yes, I mean, there's not a lot of people, but some people, I don't know if they still have it or I don't know what they did with it, but I gave away a lot of the stuff that I did, and but that's when people started recognizing what I could do, and then I can't remember when I transitioned from doing that to doing my more landscape type stuff that I'm probably more known for. I don't remember when that happened. It just did. I don't remember exactly when that happened, but that's what I fell in love with was doing landscape type work. And so nature, that's my thing. I could never for my life draw a person, but I could draw a tree. I could draw the hell out of a tree. That's my thing. So
So, well, I imagine that was sometime around you said kind of made the transition to doing more of those different drawings and things like that into high school and really kind of getting
yeah,
interested
I
in
think
that
it was high
there.
school that I did a lot of it.
Um, and sometime after high school, you decided, hey, I'm going to make a YouTube channel.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Actually, funny
what
enough,
brought you
I'm
to YouTube?
again, I don't remember exactly why I got on YouTube, but all I remember was I made the YouTube channel on my birthday. I don't know why I did it on my birthday, but I did. And yeah, I don't. Okay, now I had a I had an old YouTube channel, not Tyler's Art Check. I had another one, where I I used to play this old video game. A couple of the different ones. One of them was Battlefield 2. A couple of the first-person shooter type games, the older ones, and I messed around in them, and I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if I made a video out of this? And that's what I did. I brought it. I got some editing software, and I made a couple of videos, and I put them up on that old YouTube channel. And I think that's what got me thinking like, oh, YouTube, and I do art. So I think that's where the combination came together, and I made the YouTube channel um, after a while. And the name, I don't know where I came up with the name,
I was going to
but
ask, but
I don't. Yeah. So if that was a question, I don't know where I came up with the name. I would imagine it was because of my love for the ocean and just seeing, like the picturesque scene of, 'cause I love being out in the ocean, riding waves, and the picture in like Hawaii with a shack on the beach, living there, being able to go out in the water whenever I wanted. I love that idea, so I think that's why I just called it Tyler's Art Shack. That's my best guess as to why I called it that, and I remember thinking about that, but yeah. So sorry, we got off a little off topic
no,
there. A
that's
little,
fine.
it's the way I roll. I take one idea and I just go.
There might not be an answer to this, but because we're kind of talking about leaning into drawing and leaning into the channel, do you have any idea why you chose graphite?
I love black and white.
Yeah.
So I there are a lot of videos that I did that I remember that I did a lot of color. But when it came down to it, I felt that pictures emitted a lot more emotion when they were in black and white than color. And also, I felt that I had an easier time expressing myself with just black and white than doing with color. Also, I mean, I felt it was a little, just overall easier. But I mean, I eventually did get into oil painting too, so that was a lot of color in there. But I always went back to doing black and white, no matter what. If I branched off, did oil, branched off, did pastel. I did a lot of oil pastel for a while there too. I always came back to black and white. So that's kind of where I always, just because of the pure emotion that you can express through a black and white image that you can get with color. I always found.
So in the heyday of your channel, so to speak,
Oh yeah, those were days.
certainly had the ups and downs of the whole experience, but at a certain point, you started getting noticing yourself getting some more popularity to things.
Yeah, yeah.
Was there one particular video you might remember that kind of like took off and made you think that, hey, there's something to this, maybe I should do more of it?
There was one video in particular. I mean, that now I'm sure there's a lot of videos that have gone surpassed 100,000 views, but um, a lot of my speed drawings went up. But the one video that I was the most proud of was, of course, I don't remember the exact name of it, but it was the one mountain image that I had. I think it was how to draw a mountain, something along those lines, or a myth, I think I called it. That video started off as a speed drawing where I had an explanation on top of it. And that video I remember was insanely popular. And it spawned a whole, I don't know how many parts, but a multi-part series on how to draw it. And there I had probably hundreds of people submit their own version of it, to my Facebook
Oh,
page, sent it to me. So many people sent it to me, and I was blown away by how good these people were getting. They were following me, all of my tutorials I was doing, that's what really got me doing in these, step by step, multi-drawing series where I go through every aspect of it. And these people were really getting good. I mean, of course, they're probably looking at me, looking at other people, and then doing everything on their own. But I was always remember being very impressed by these people coming at me and showing me how they did. And I guess it was just a testament to, we were all getting better. I was getting better at making videos. People were getting better at drawing, and it was all like everything was coming together in really good harmony. And that's when I was really realizing like I could really take this to a level and do great with it. And I did take it quite a ways after that. I think that was, I went quite a few years after that video, and man, people were really good, at making those, following along and making those drawings with it. It was really cool to see.
yeah. So one thing that I find that's really interesting with YouTube is how, I don't want to say tight knit, but sort of a little bit in groups. The way the art community is on YouTube.
It's a little clicky.
I wanted to talk a little bit about our crossing paths and the great Merrill Kazanjian, and his push to when YouTube, Google Plus Hangouts were a thing, and how he was able to bring together a community, and how you got
Yeah,
involved with that.
yeah. Boy, Merrill, he such a good guy. Um, I know we were talking, a little bit here and there, and then he just had this grand idea, like let's get a thing together and let's get a whole art community of different people, like-minded individuals, and let's help each other grow. And was the main thing. And then I mean that branched out into a whole bunch of different things. I think we got YouTube art news out of it, and then we got a bunch of other things. But the most important thing out of it is we got a really good friendship between all of us, and that's what really helped solidify all of us as YouTube creators, and really gave us a sort of platform together. And everyone knew that we talked about each other in our videos, and people knew everyone in that community. And that community definitely grew over the years. We got more people in there, and then I know there's other groups of
Right.
YouTube there too. There's so many that spawned. I mean, we definitely weren't the creators of doing that, but
No, but I feel like sometime after we started doing that, like other YouTube, like there, like anybody started to realize like, hey, I can become a YouTube artist, and now there's thousands of them.
Yeah, I think when we started, there wasn't. I mean, there were a couple big names, but the YouTube art realm wasn't that big.
Yeah,
You know,
there
you had a
was
couple big names out there. Uh,
there we had like Mark Crilly and Mary Doodles, and they were like sort of the bigger ones.
yes, yeah. Then you had oh, what was
Uh,
the name of the one that worked for Marvel or something?
oh, Cartoon Block.
Yeah, hey, he was
Yeah,
pretty big. And then there was another guy. Yeah, Mark Curley was big. There was another guy. He did a lot of speed drawings, and he had hundreds of thousands of views on each video. I can't remember his name.
well, there was the guy that did the portrait stuff.
Yeah.
But
No,
he was always more kind of obscure because he just kind of posted a thing and left, and he had the
yeah, yeah. But I mean, there
um,
wasn't anywhere near as many. I mean, now
Juanita's Orange Monkey. We were talking about him earlier.
Orange Monkey. Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of us were all on there doing our thing. And yeah. Um, but I mean, I would say combined. I mean, it could be many more. There's probably a good 20, 30 of us.
Yeah,
mm, You know that we all knew well,
right.
and I imagine you would know better than me today how many there are. I imagine there's
Um,
hundreds, if not more.
I remember when I was first few shows I was in with Merrill. I think there were like 12 or 14 of us regulars,
Yeah,
like every couple of days or
yeah,
once a week or whatever it was. I mean, I was there years. It was Thad. There was Josh.
yeah,
Inu Joshua Art was the channel. I think it still is.
yeah.
um,
Yeah. The name for a while was Inu Jasha Art. Play off Inu Jasha.
Shiny. I don't know which Shiny.
Oh my
Oh
God, I remember
God.
that. That definitely rings a bell.
Yeah, there was a guy in comments called Roundbrush Steve. I remember
Yeah,
him.
I remember that name.
And I think he kept making all the fake accounts, or was that you?
No, I didn't do any of that. There was
Because
Brown
there was Meryl, and then all of a sudden we got like Carol Mazanjian in
Yes,
comments,
yes.
and we I think we thought it was either him or Orange Monkey doing that.
Oh my God. Yeah, I remember Round Brush Steve. That was such a good name.
She said shiny Alex. He was the Pokemon one. I think he was more of one of the branch out because like the Juanita was one that we kind of got branching out, and she came
Yeah,
in, and then we started getting the. And I kind of felt like I was the branch out artist at some point. 'Cause I can't even remember how I got in. Like I think I was watching, and then it's like, "Hey, come on in here," and I'm like, "Okay."
yeah,
And
yeah.
like the next day, I like went out and bought the webcam that I'm still using.
Yep,
Um,
yep. No, it's
but
such a
yeah,
long
like
time ago. It's
he did such
memory
a
lane here.
yeah he was such a community builder, and I wish
Yeah, it was.
want to get him back eventually.
I'm
um,
sure you can get him in here. Yeah, have you had a chance to interview him yet?
I haven't. It's been on the list. though.
Okay. I know he's probably a difficult guy to track down.
Yeah, I mean,
He's
I've got him
a
on
family.
Facebook, but every now like I'll message him and I can't get more than like two sentences out of him before he's gone again. So,
That's
um,
kind of the way it's always been, though. But
but back to your story.
yes, yes, what happened? Okay.
As much fun as it is to reminisce.
Oh yeah,
Um, sometime I think everyone kind of at a certain point, roughly within the same like year and a half period, kind of disappeared.
yeah, yeah. I know
um,
a lot of people just kind of faded.
I know Thad
Oh,
moved and went to art school, and his videos trailed.
yep. Yeah, he actually moved.
Meryl's first kid was born, that took most of his time up. But
Oh
you
my.
kind of just vanished one day.
Yeah, yeah, I did. There are so many reasons why. So many reasons.
Pick one.
Well, I'll give you the gist of a few. The whole goal of making YouTube art news and coming together as a community, we were trying so hard to get Google to recognize art as a category on YouTube. And if we did that, it would have made our views soar. You know, we would have become much bigger than we were. And the goal of that was, at the end of the day, was monetary,
Hmm.
to make extra money. And at the time when I was doing a lot of YouTube videos, I was in college and I didn't have any other real job. I, worked part time here and there, and I did YouTube. And I really needed YouTube to produce financially for me so that I can keep doing it. And there was a while that I was actually doing pretty well with it, through AdSense and things like that, where you make revenue from the videos, and I was doing pretty well. But I remember I was doing spreadsheets of of my growth, and I was seeing increased revenue, and I got to a December one year, at the end of the year, and I had my best month ever. I did really well, and the check that came in was I was very happy with it. And then December came around of the one year, and the check that came in was like a sixth of what I made the month prior.
It's
I'm
probably,
like, okay,
it must have been when they implemented the whatever algorithm that screwed everyone up.
maybe. And I'm like, all right, it's an anomaly. I went to the next month. I made even less the next month. And I'm like looking at it, I'm like, it doesn't make sense. My viewership is up, my engagement is up, all my likes and comments or subscriptions are all up, but the paycheck was, so low compared to what it used to be. And it started to do a downward spiral. I mean, not that, money isn't the driving, I have a passion to do this, but when you're in a position where you're a full-time student, you're working part-time, and you need extra money, because at that time I'm in my early 20s. I need to start something. I need to start getting my life together, and start um, doing my thing and living on my own. It just wasn't producing, and it just one week after another, it became more and more of a chore to produce the videos, edit, upload to YouTube, make sure I'm getting all the engagement that I need to and whatnot. And it just wasn't I wasn't getting the traction and the engagement that I needed, and it downward spiral all the way until I eventually just one day I didn't upload, and I haven't uploaded since, and that's just kind of the way it went. Um, and so that channel just kind of went dark. And right when that channel went dark, um, I was still in college, and I started to transition into doing what I'm doing now, which I don't know if is a lead up or follow up question to what you have, but that's kind of that's where I am now, is the fork in the road that I decided to take in life.
Yeah,
So
it is a lead up, but I actually want to backstep for a second.
yeah, go ahead.
So you were doing a like art's the passion, and everything, and you went to college, but you chose to study something other than art or design or whatever it happens to be. Like, was it a thought, like, do I want to go to, like, maybe go to school for art, or just was it just not a thought?
So I at first went to college for art. I did take some art classes, and I took actually, that's where I got into oil painting, was through college. And I enjoyed it, but I remember looking at, when you go to college and you pick a major, they always tell you what jobs you could possibly get. And I look at the jobs that I could get going through college, and none of them sounded good to me. I didn't want to become a graphic designer. I didn't want to become. See, I don't even know the jobs because I don't know the field anymore. But the jobs that they listed, I'm like, I don't want to do these things. I just want to draw. That's what I want to do. And unfortunately, there's not too many outlets that you can do where you can just draw what you want and make a living at it.
Yeah.
It's you can, don't get me wrong, you can absolutely do it. But good grief,
Financial stability,
yeah. I mean, hey, I mean, there's I was young. That was in my early 20s, and you don't realize how important it is then to have a stable financial, foundation underneath you. And I was definitely naive in those days, and I just thought that I could just keep doing what I'm doing and make it. And I suppose, and if I had if I had the um, I brain fart.
Drive, motivation.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good word. Yeah, if I had the drive to keep doing it, I probably could have made something big out of it. But the amount of work, it was an uphill battle for sure, and it definitely got me down for a bit. So, but that's life. You have ups and downs.
And what did you end up
Oh yeah,
finishing
you
with?
asked me this question.
Yeah.
So I ended up switching my major to computers and networking because that was another thing that out of high school that I really liked to do. I had a couple of my friends around me were very good at computers, very tech savvy, and I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world to be able to buy parts or go to a store and buy parts and build a computer. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, and I did. I built many computers back in those days, and so I thought that and the rationale I had was I can go to school for computers, do that for a living, and then do art on the side. And that was my plan back then. That's what I wanted to do. At least then I have a financial, foundation, and then I can do that on the side. And
Okay.
that's what I was going to do. But
Yeah.
that didn't happen either.
Well, I mean, it's an important stepping stone, and I completely overlooked that in my early questioning. So the down we covered sort of the downfall of not the downfall of the channel, but like the hiatus and the everything kind of going black,
A hiatus, which led into a downfall, which led to just a whole
disappearing. So at some point, you kind of made this shift from graphite drawing on the side and the YouTube channel to woodworking,
yeah.
which now I know you and I know you were interested in that to somewhat before that, but
Yeah.
what really led to that big of a switch?
So, I guess the best way I could say is I became a frustrated artist. It just things weren't going the way I wanted to, and I needed another creative outlet. And another, high school was just the birthplace of so many passions of mine. And another one was woodworking. I had a really good high school woodshop teacher, and I mean I took woodshop in middle school too, but I didn't realize the full capacity of it until high school because that my teacher that I had he was a master at what he did, and he taught me just a fraction of what he knew. And I was making all kinds of stuff in high school. And so skipping forward a bit, when it came to when I was, still in college and not doing so much of the YouTube stuff anymore, I got a phone call from a cousin of mine who lived up in New York State, and he said, "Hey, I have a building I acquired, and I'm turning it into a wood shop, and I know that you were very good at it in high school. You want to come up here and play around and make some stuff?" He said, "No strings attached. Don't pay me anything. Just bring your lumber. If you break a blade, replace a blade. If you use sandpaper, replace the sandpaper. Just use what you can and replace anything that you break. This is more or less the deal." And I went up there and started making stuff, and I absolutely fell in love again with making. So back then, I did a lot of turning of segmented bowls, um, and those things. It's hundreds of pieces of wood all into one bowl, and you turn it on the lathe, and you make. They're beautiful. I wish I had a couple around me to show you, but I don't. Um, and I loved the process of it again. And actually, I only worked up there for a month before I decided I'm taking this back home to my garage. So I went on Craigslist. I bought a table saw. I bought a drum sander. I bought a couple of the tools. Put them all in my shop. And mind you, I only had about $1,000 to my name at that time. That's all I had. Spent all of it on this machinery just because I wanted something in life. I was really kind of down in the dumps. I didn't know what to do. And that's what I did. I brought the operation back home and I just started making stuff. And at that time, I had no intention of making revenue from it. It just kind of went on its own path. It just, it I let it take me where it took me. And this is where it led me.
And made a mess of your parents' garage, if I recall.
Oh my God, the amount of dust. So I'll tell you a funny story. There's a machine called a dust collector, which
So
is
the big hose thing, right?
yeah, it's an oversized vacuum cleaner for very, very small particles of dust. and it's a 4-inch hose, and it's a big contraption. And every so often you have to empty it out. So you have to clean the filter bag on it. And the funniest way I know how to do that is to wheel it outside, plug it in, and turn it on without the bottom collection bag. So when you do that, it takes all the really fine dust up on the top part, and it just throws it all down and out into wherever. And in my neighborhood, I was able to make it so dusty I couldn't see my neighbors across the street. So, and the one time I did it, my neighbor actually was cleaning their car, and they were happy about it. I didn't realize they were cleaning their car until after I turned it on. I'm like, oh, my bad.
Sorry.
Yeah, literally. So yeah, fun times.
So did you actually buy the whole dust cleaning thing? Because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, some hose and maybe like a shop vac could probably do it if you have a powerful enough motor.
Shop vac does get the job done, but when you have bigger machines, a lot of times they overwhelm the lack of a better word, it lacks the sucking power. It's all
Suction.
technical woodworking terms. It lacks the sucking power of the larger machines. And, the output of dust that they do, it can't suck enough. This is we're probably going to get thrown off the conversation, but I promise you that they're all acceptable woodworking terms. So
Demonetized.
you're right.
So
Video.
so something I was thinking about before, which I forgot to write down, but I'll bring up now since I'm thinking about it. So you credit a lot of your interest in woodworking to your experience in high school, and a
Yeah.
lot of schools now are completely ditching woodshop as a whole.
Yes, they are.
I'm curious your thoughts on that, as well as like what would you say as an advocate to maybe keep that in schools?
So I understand their reasoning for it.
It's expensive.
When it comes down to it, it's financial and it's expensive to run a wood shop, and it's also the insurance liability is insane. Because you have the risk of kids literally losing limbs trying to make a shelf.
That's gonna
Yeah,
be crooked, probably.
yeah, yes. So I get it. I really, really do. But a lot of schools unfortunately are following this trend, but they've actually gone back a little bit, which is good. But for a while, the trend was, you know, get rid of the wood shop, get rid of the cooking classes, get rid of the auto body, the metal, anything that's not history, math, or English.
Mhm.
Get rid of it. Was more or less, even photography was getting rid of for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm 100% against it because at the end of the day, there are careers where you can do, math. Math. Everyone says math isn't important. Math is hugely important. History, yeah, for perspective, and English, yeah, because you need to know the language and know how to write. I get why all those are, very, very important. But at the end of the day, there are so many fields of work out there that, you know, those are more on the back burner for what you need to know, knowledge wise. And there aren't too many classes. If they get rid of all these classes, people aren't going to know how to work with their hands. In a world where we're outsourcing almost everything overseas, tech support, building of products, almost everything, the ability to work with your hands and be able to fix things is becoming more and more of a scarce knowledge, which is very scary. 20 years down the road, are we going to have someone that's going to know how to fix your heat and electricity? I'm sure there will, but I might be making a moot point. But uh, I feel that there's less and less of hand skill these days, and I feel like that's an important thing to learn, especially when you're in high school, when you're relatively still young and you can retain a lot of that what you learned back in those days. So, but what I would say before, they're coming back a little bit. There are a lot of STEM classes being taught these days, and that's a combination of actually in my old high school woodshop, or high school rather, they brought back. They've always had woodshop; they still do. Of course, with COVID, everything is
Yeah.
shut down. But um, they brought CNC machinery in there. They brought lasers and all kinds of other equipment for these STEM classes where people can build stuff. And I'm just like, holy moly, that's really cool. thank goodness for technology that's making it cheaper to access all these different desktop technologies where you can make and manufacture stuff, because that's a really great skill to teach these kids. So I'm glad at least they're doing that. And I don't know if my school is the only one, but I'm sure they're doing it in a lot of others. But that's really good to see. It's encouraging as well.
Yeah, I mean, you think even something like a 3D printer, where like 5 years ago a 3D printer was like 20 grand, and now you can get one for like $150.
Yeah, I actually have one of those. I made a couple things with it. It's pretty
Nice.
fun, and I put it away forever.
It's okay. That was fun for a couple of months. Now
Yeah,
let's.
I spent $300 on it, made a couple things, and I never used it since.
But you've got one in case you need it.
Yeah, that I do. So,
All right. So you were again. You came back. You were making stuff in the garage.
yeah,
And at some point you must have decided, like, hey, let's maybe turn this into a business. 'Cause, were people interested in buying things? Did they just want the
yeah.
stuff you were making?
So, I'll cover like 2 points here. My I had a first show, but that I didn't make any sales there, so I kind of forget about that one. My first, it was also like a freebie type thing where I was invited to participate, and I had a bunch of my stuff out, and I didn't make any sales, but and that's just kind of the way that first one goes. But my first actual craft show, I remember I made like $117, and I made a crucial mistake. I did not have any way to accept credit cards, and I lost
Uh,
many sales because of that. Not many sales. I mean, but my first show,
more than you could get.
yeah, I mean, realistically, I probably lost 50, $60 out of it. It's not the end of the world. But your first show is your biggest teacher. But when I grabbed my first event, I was making pens, and I had some cutting boards and other things. I'm trying to remember back my old inventory. I had a lot of things I don't have now, and yeah, I was making a couple sales, and I was really excited about it. And the money that I made, I put right back into the business. I bought new stuff. But it wasn't until a couple years later, and again, this conversation always kind of comes up in my family where I'm doing stuff, I'm making a little bit of money, but my family, they'll kind of sit me down and be like, "This is great and all. Like, I love what you're doing, but when are you going to start making money?" And I'm like,
I still get that.
"Ooh, I knew this was going to come up." And I said, "I don't know." I mean, because there were, mind you, like these shows that I was doing, they were probably 25 to $50, really,
Mhm.
really cheap. If I didn't make any money, $50 at the end of the day. I mean, for a lot of people, $50 probably a lot of money, but
Yeah, but
for me
it's
and where I was, it was not bad.
yeah, vending fees or something you can't really get around.
Yes, and there were bigger events, and where they would draw a higher clientele, a more
Mhm.
sophisticated crowd, where they'll spend more money. But these shows were $400 or $500, and I've never made that much money at a show
Right.
at that time. And I'm just like, I can't justify spending that much money, because I'm going to spend that much money, I'm not going to make it,
Hmm. It's the return.
and
There's no return.
there's no return. There's a loss. And so my family was just like, well, you might need to figure something out so you can start making a little bit of money here. And it wasn't until maybe 2015 or so, I did a show. um, there's a little crafters village up in the town of Sugarloaf, New York. um, Someone told me about it, and I applied and I did it. And I remember it was like $100 for the weekend. And it's 3 days, which I've never done a 3-day event before. So by the end of it, I had made so much money. I was floored by it, like in the thousands. And I had no idea that that was even possible to do. And it changed everything. It was a complete game changer. At that point, I registered my business with the state. Everyone in my family recognized that this is actually a viable business opportunity. And I was excited as hell about this. And so that was around October of the one year, and that was, I would say that was probably 2015 or so. And in 2016, I registered my business name Trees to Dreams with the state, and I completely revamped my schedule, and I spent a lot of money on my schedule, for the shows that I was doing. I was doing huge events. These events range anywhere from 400 to over $1,000 to be at, but I didn't care. I knew that I could make the money, and little spoiler, by golly, I did. So it worked out.
Um,
Yeah,
I
every
I
year I
was
saw a huge growth.
gonna kind of ask because I remember at some point you were calling yourself Tyler's Turnings, and then it shifted to
Yeah,
Trees to Dreams. And I'm
yeah,
guessing
yeah,
that
it
was
did.
the incorporation. You actually needed to get a name that
Yeah,
was.
I wanted to take my name out of the business name. I don't know why I didn't, because I felt like with the name Tyler's Turnings, that was just a pseudo name for what I was doing. I just needed something because I was doing a lot of wood turning. And when it came down to making a business name, I came up with two things. I said, one, I don't really want my name to be in the business because it kind of reminds me of, my YouTube days. And I kind of wanted a fresh slate, just a clean
Mhm.
start from the ground up and completely redo everything. So I wanted a name that didn't kind of build off of that. I didn't want this to be a branch off what I did before. I wanted it to be completely brand new. That, and I didn't do much wood turning at that time. Most of my product that I was selling was not made. So turnings is a name. When you turn something, it's made on a lathe, which is a type of it's a piece of woodworking equipment that spins the wood at a high rate of speed. You take a tool to it and you shape the piece as it's spinning. A lot of wood chips everywhere very quickly. It's a lot of fun. And I wasn't really making much with that, so I thought it didn't make sense to have the name Turnings in my name. So I ended up going online, and I found a company. I don't know if they're still in existence, but I'll mention it. Um, the company was called Brandatory, and they created my name and my logo for a grand total of $60.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then I absolutely love the name. And I helped, I gave them the idea for the logo, and they helped me create that. And I registered with the state, and it became I got my EIN number, or whatever you call it, all those things, and it became a legit thing. I was a business. I was incorporated, and that was the starting point of a long road of making a lot of cool things. So it was definitely that was a day for sure. I remember that day. That was cool.
Um, so we talked a little bit about the shift from graphite drawing to woodworking. I'm
Yeah,
curious what skills, if any, have transferred between the two media.
that's a really good question, actually. I wonder if I can give you a good answer on that or not. Um, I'm sure in some way it has. It's hard to directly correlate. They're two very, very different mediums. Um, the only thing I would say is probably composition. Not only thing, but probably one of the big things is composition. In terms of how the product looks. Composition and drawing is how the overall presentation of a piece, a drawing, a painting, what have you. And then when you make a product such as like a cutting board or something with a really elaborate pattern in it, you have the composition of all of the pieces that go into the cutting board, and is it pleasing to the eye? And my artistic abilities from back then, I think, translate in that way in terms of the way the product ultimately looks. If it's pleasing to the eye, is it functional? Well, I mean, functional probably goes more in depth than what composition is, but I think in that aspect, that's probably the main thing that's translated over. I'm sure the fine motor skills of being able to draw and whatnot. Um, I definitely see that in using the lathe, where you have to use a chisel, and you have to be very, very good with your hands to have the stability and to be able to maneuver the tool in such a way to get the right um, shape on the thing that you're turning. So fine motor skills, composition are two big things I would say definitely translated. Um, I'm sure there's more.
Yeah, but that's what comes to mind, right?
Yeah, that's what for a question. I mean, that's a good question, and I wish I could give you a more profound answer, but that's off the top of my head, that's probably the best I can think. So,
It'll be tomorrow, and you go, "Ah, that was better."
oh yeah, that's the way I operate. I always think tomorrow I can think, oh, I should have said this or that. Yeah,
um,
life is
yeah. So going through and incorporating and becoming a business and everything like that certainly has some challenges and big rewards.
yeah.
What you'd say is the biggest challenge and the biggest reward for being a professional artist?
The biggest challenge is probably financial. it's your own business, so you're in complete 100% control. You can do whatever you want in the day. You can make stuff, you can advertise yourself, or you could do absolutely nothing and just lay in bed all day. It's completely up to you. You're self-employed. Congratulations. You can do whatever the heck you want. No one can tell you what to do. You're not, it's not. That's the one nice thing about it is, it's not a 9 to 5 where, and when you clock in, you have to do what your scheduled tasks are, or you get fired. Um, the stakes are, I would say, arguably are much higher when you're self-employed. You can do what you need to do and survive and thrive, or you can do the bare minimum and barely get by. It's completely up to you. So I think the biggest challenge is discipline, for sure, is having the drive to do what you do. And it's not only just making the product. You got to be your own, your own organizer, have your own inventory list. You got to be your own advertiser. If you want to sell stuff online, you got to be your own shipping station. And I do shows. Of course, COVID is, a different year, but in a normal year, I'm doing 25, 30 shows a year. So I have a cargo van, which I have to load up every weekend, especially this time of year. Yeah, if you asked me a couple weeks ago to do this interview, I would have said, yeah, I can't do it until the new year, because every single weekend, from Thursday to Sunday night, I am somewhere. I'm in up in Maine. I'm out in Virginia, Ohio, all these different states doing shows. And the discipline of doing that is very, very difficult at times, because there are days where I just don't want to do anything, and there are days I don't do anything, and there are days where I work 18 hours nonstop and I will get a lot done. And I think that is where the biggest reward is that um, you get out of it what you put into it. So if you put a lot of effort into it, you put all your a lot of passion into it, you probably my biggest reward is when I'm at the shows. And these shows, they could be a small event, they could be a huge event, but it's more at the big events where I am surrounded by artists. Like, this is the big leagues. People who have jewelry worth, if you want to buy their jewelry, you're spending $900 on something they have. If you want to buy a painting, $6,000 to $10,000. If you want to buy a photographer's image, you're talking everything is almost thousands of dollars. And that's the high end. Of course, there's stuff at the low end, where things are between, 50 to $100. That's more or less my price range, is 50 to $100, sometimes more. But the biggest reward is when people walk into your booth and they smile, they light up, they like, oh my God, this stuff is amazing. And I am surrounded by people who arguably do significantly better work than me, and they have price points and sales to prove it. But they still walk into my booth, and I know darn well that there's so much better stuff that I have, but they still walk in my booth and they are like in awe of what I have, the product that I have, and they are so happy to buy what I have, and and use it for the holidays. This time of year, Thanksgiving and Christmas. My cheese boards, my pepper grinders, different things like that. They love the idea of it, and they will bring it home, and it'll make their holidays just a little bit better. And probably my biggest seller is these. I have these magnetic bottle openers. You stick them on your fridge, and you can open up bottles of beer on it. The amount of those things that I sell, and I always think that on Christmas morning, how many people are opening this up right now for Christmas? It makes everything worth it in the end. So that's probably the biggest uh, thing about this. It makes me happy that things that I make, people are so happy to both purchase it and give them as gifts. It's priceless. It really is.
Nice. Um, okay. Don't have a ton of viewers with us this evening, but I will say in a few minutes we will open things up to viewer questions if there are any. So if you guys are watching, have any to drop in, go ahead and do so now. We'll get to them sometime relatively soon. I have a few sort of quick rapid fire ones for you. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I lost you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, no, I got you now. Okay, that was weird.
Okay.
Suddenly it went out. I'm like, uh-oh. Don't have to restart anything.
Good.
So first one up, kind of your process for sourcing and wood materials.
So there's so many ways you can source lumber. I mean, you can go to Home Depot, Lowe's, and or more specialized lumber companies. But the one thing you'll realize very quickly is the price tag. Good God, is that stuff expensive? So sourcing of materials, I think the way I did it was I went on. See, this was before Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist. You have definite risk of being murdered using Craigslist. People have been, apparently. So I'm using Craigslist, and every time I, I was playing games with online friends, and I was telling them, all right, I'm gonna go. I found someone on Craigslist that's selling lumber. They're like, okay, I hope you come back alive. I'm like, I'll let you know. And, I found this guy who lives out in Pennsylvania, and we've developed a great relationship over the past probably 4 or 5 years. And he has an awesome supply of lumber, and he sells it to me at really great rates. I mean, his prices are much less than what you'll find at I guess big box stores is the right term. And the also the relationship that we've developed has also given me a nice advantage as well. So um, that, and it's I'm also supporting another small business, which is the big goal here. So yeah, that's my sourcing of lumber is one of the things that's difficult, because if you can't find your lumber, you can't make product. It halts the entire process of what you're trying to do. So, which is why I spend an ungodly amount of money every year buying lumber, and I buy huge piles of it, so I avoid that very problem, especially this time of year. Um, in a normal year, COVID and everything. Good grief, it's a nightmare. This time of year, I have been known to go through my lumber pile so fast. I'm making stuff so quickly that I need a huge amount. So I always source large amounts of it when I can. And it's always pay dividends to have larger amounts. And typically when you buy more, you pay less, because they'll give you bulk price discounts. So there's always that too, which is good.
I imagine, is it like I guess you have to dry it, let it sit long enough, or does he already have it?
Yeah, so when he sells it to me, he has there's a process where you dry wood. It's you put the wood in a kiln, and you put the temperature up, and it basically bakes the wood until the moisture, the water leaves the wood, and then you can then make stuff out of it. Because if you don't do that, if you cut down a tree, mill it into boards, make stuff out of it, it'll look very different in 2 years than when you first built it. It will The wood can move, it can warp, it can shrink, it can expand, it can crack, it can do all kinds of really silly things. And so when you dry it, it doesn't do that anymore, typically. Of course, wood is a living thing, and it can do whatever it wants.
Well,
It kind of has a mind of its own sometimes.
it used to be living. I mean, to cut it.
I guess I can call myself a tree murderer of sorts. I make beautiful things out of it, though.
It'd be the most ridiculous name for a business, the tree murderer.
Would it be the most ridiculous name or the most successful name?
I think if you made skulls and stuff out of wood, you'd have to adapt the business to the.
Yeah, I think. And hey, there's a following for everything out there these days. So,
what is your favorite project or projects to work
on? Definitely these the bottle openers that I make. The bottle openers are both monotonous, tedious, annoying, but they're also probably the most rewarding thing that I make. The bottle openers, I have a couple of them here. I don't know how dumb they are. Yeah, they're kind of
done.
So, they start off, they look like this. I don't know if it's backwards or not, but it says "Save water, drink." And so I'll attach an opener to it, and and then you put it on your fridge, open up bottles of beer on it. And this starts off as a computer program I designed, and I'll write the lettering on it. If I have images, I have anchors, I have a lot of different sayings, and probably the most popular saying that I have is "Take your top off." People love it. It's great, and but I mean, they start off as a computer program, and I export it to my CNC machine, which is a computer programmed router that will cut, shapes out of wood. It'll cut lettering out. It'll cut whatever you want. And so, making a batch of 100, I'm literally sitting on my laptop, loading and unloading pieces of wood from these CNC machines, and it's really tedious. I usually end up watching a movie or something when I'm doing it. But where it gets fun is when you cut the wood, you're going to leave a pocket, and you got to do something with that. I mean, you can leave it, but it doesn't look great. I pour resin back into it, and so I can use all different colors. And the colors, since they're liquid, they're going to move around. They're going to do what they're going to do. And each one, after it dries, I'm like, holy moly, that looks really cool. And so every time I do it, it's a real surprise. And so the end result is always worth it, but the process up to that point is monotonous. So it's a love hate, and it's really weird. And it's one of my most popular items that I make. So it's a real love hate. So
Nice. Um, do you have any plans for new items or ideas for things that you would want to add to that inventory?
so the first thing I can think of from the top of my head is I have a friend who his parents do these shows, and I always see him. He hangs out my booth. He's about my age, and he loves. Again, we're talking about the bottle openers. He loves them. He loves the fact that the magnets, after you open up the bottle, it'll catch the cap. And he always takes the cap off my wall and stands back about 4 feet and tosses the cap at the wall to see if any of the magnets will catch the cap. And I'm like, that's giving me an idea, where you open up your bottle of beer and you get the cap, and then you stand back and you throw it at the wall, and I'll put like a bunch of magnets in the board, and wherever it lands, it'll be like a thing that you have to do. Take a shot. Do this, do that.
Or even point system like a dartboard.
True. Yeah, you could do a couple different things with it, and that's something that I've always thought about and never did. So it's kind of in the back of my head,
Hmm.
and the biggest hurdle with that is cost, because I actually have one here. These little magnets are ridiculously expensive. So I mean, these things are, when you add it up, they're a lot of money. So I've been trying to figure out a way to make a cost-effective version of it that actually works, because if you don't have a strong enough magnet, the cap won't stick no matter how hard you try to do it, because you have to stop the force of the cap, to get it to stick. Otherwise, it'll just bounce off the wall, and what's the point?
Yeah, for
I have to do
sure.
a lot of prototyping with that. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing that I've always thought of. I've been thinking about that for years and just haven't done it. It could be $1 million idea. Who knows? Or it could be out there and it could be a dud.
Hey, even if you just make one, it's
Yeah,
there. It's there for you, and you did it.
this is true. That's usually how it starts. I make something for myself, and then if I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I could try selling this. Yeah, there's a lot of different processes to how I make stuff.
Um, okay, last couple for the sort of the quick fire ones. The one tool you can't live without, and the one you wish you had.
Um. So the one tool I can't live without.
Right. It's like
Uh,
your favorite one, the one that you always go to.
right now, my favorite tool is a laser. So I have a laser cutter, and I bought it this year, earlier in the year, and I freaking love it. And it makes I can make cool things like this. It says "Home Sweet Home" on it. So I mean, I just have that sitting up here, and I could do so many cool things with it. It's amazing. And I guess the one tool I wish I had was I really want an automated like plasma cutter for sheet metal goods,
Uh-huh.
and so I can make like large metal signs like the ones you see out of people's houses, where they do a split monogram letter. Like if you take my last name Lucas, you take a big L, split it in half, and you write Lucas in between it. And those things, I mean, they're popular. They're really popular, but the problem is the cost approach, or the first initial cost of buying one of those machines is astronomical. So it's very deterring to get into that field, and knowing I have to make back a lot of money to make it worth it. And I also don't really have the room to fit those. So I guess I'll have to buy another house with a bigger shop. So another project for another day. But hey, there's always in the future. You know, could always do something down the road. But that's definitely something I wish I had. That'd be very cool. And also too, the incorporation of wood and metal, I think, is the coolest thing in the world. So if I could have another thing to do that, would be be even cooler.
Nice. That does kind of lead me into one of my last big questions here. It is just your general future goals, plans to expand and maybe travel further.
So, more of short-term goals. Again, COVID has messed up everything, and I think everyone in the world can say the same. Um, my short-term big goal was to actually get a camper because I have a van, and when I do these shows, one of my major expenses is hotels. Um, and I one year I added up all my hotel bills, and it came out to the cost of where I could buy a used nice camper to trail behind my van, and that would, if I got a camper, it would allow me to expand and do further shows. I mean, as of right now, I'm going. I try to cap myself at about a 5 hour trip, and that's far. That's a lot. And if I had a camper, I can go further because ultimately, I've noticed something with this job is that there's a lot of freedom in terms of where I want to do shows. I live in New Jersey, and so I'm landlocked on, or not land, or ocean blocked on one side, and I have the rest of the country on the other way to go, but I can't really go that far because the cost of hotels would outweigh the price or the amount of goods I could sell on a weekend. So if I got a camper, I could really offset those costs and basically, have zero costs in terms of sleeping overnight in different random locations, and I'd be able to see much more of the country. So that's one big goal of mine. I always wanted an excuse to see things that I normally would never in my lifetime, not to say have a desire, but just have a reason to go see. I don't have a reason to go to Maryland. I don't have a reason to go up down to Virginia. I don't have a reason to go to Maine or Connecticut. But some of the best places I've ever been to, like one of my favorite towns to go to is Mystic, Connecticut. I love that town. It's amazing. The food, the atmosphere, the vibe, it's great. But I want to find more places like that. And I would love to go down to Florida. I'd love to go to Colorado and do shows. So I mean, that's short-term goals.
Come
Long term,
come visit me in Pittsburgh.
yeah, yeah. Pittsburgh. There is a big show out there that I've
There's
considered.
there's the Three Rivers Arts Festival, which is
That
usually
one.
every June,
I actually got into that one this year.
and then it didn't happen.
Yeah, I got accepted into it.
Wow.
I was gonna do it.
That'd have been great because I try and go down almost every year, and it's the foot traffic for that show is crazy big.
Yeah, I got into it this year, and it got canceled. So
Wow, that
um,
sucks. Did they refund your deposit?
yeah. No, actually, before they even sent out acceptances, they canceled the show. So the only thing I lost was my application fee, which it is what it is. But beyond that, I mean, the camper would again unlock huge potential. It's the same thing when I bought my van, because before I had my van, I had two cars. My mom would have to drive with me to any show, and so I was basically limited to an hour and a half distance. And when I got my van, I unlocked, doing 5 6 hour drives. Now, if I get a camper, it'll unlock much further. It's like I feel like it's like achievements. You've unlocked Colorado. So I feel like if I got a camper, it'll open up my opportunities for a lot more. And I definitely have a desire to travel and see the world, mainly within the United States. And um, if I can have a reason to be there and make a little bit of money on the way, I mean, hey, that's can't beat that. So that's nice. It's just time, just time traveling back and forth to these places is the biggest thing. But hey,
I imagine you'd have to build up a slightly bigger inventory if you're coming across the country and back doing shows.
yeah, and then I'd also probably double book myself out in a similar area. That way I can do 2 3 shows in one area, and then that way I know for a fact I can. If I put my eggs in one basket in one show, I'm definitely gonna end up screwing myself. But if I have 2 3 4 shows, maybe spend a month out on the road, then I have a much better chance of making it worth it, and then I can see a lot more things, which is bonuses all around. So
Nice.
works out.
All right. Um. Oh yeah, this is always fun. If money wasn't an obstacle, what would you do artistically?
If money wasn't an obstacle, see, there's a big split right now. It's like, what do I love more, woodworking or art? And I don't know if I can really definitively say. And it's hard to choose one versus the other. I mean, right now, woodworking is my life. I surround myself with it 24/7. And but I mean, art. I mean, woodworking is I think is definitely an extension of my art in some ways. But I think when I say art, people are more referring back to my YouTube days with drawing. I mean, if money was no object, I would probably have a space that could accommodate both for sure in some capacity. I've always wanted like a lakeside house or something with a room, a nice big glass room that overlooks either a lake or an ocean, some body of water that is really peaceful, where I can just escape to and do some artwork to that capacity, and then also have a large shop and tinker because I love working with my hands and making stuff and fixing stuff. It's what drives me to do what I do. So I don't know. It's definitely a hard choice. If I have to choose one or the other, I don't know if I could. Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause even though I don't do much art anymore, drawing or painting, I still have everything. I have all my paints, I have all my supplies. I still have it all, just in boxes right now. Still have it all. So, I can't part with it. It's too much of my life right there. So
Yeah.
that I could always still use it.
All right, I'm gonna give you one more question, and then we'll see if we have any questions from the viewing audience. Mostly,
Yep.
I think it's mostly just been Juanita tonight. But anyone watching here that has a question for Tyler, go ahead and drop them in now, and we'll get together in just a minute with those.
Sure.
Um, so my last one for you is: did you have somebody that was sort of a mentor, which I think it was a little bit your what you said, your second cousin that kind of brought you in the shop, or like a big inspiration that kind of drives you to make your projects?
I mean, there are definitely quite a few along the way. Um, Between my high school woodshop teacher, who really he definitely took me under his wing. He showed me so much, and he got me inspired to do a lot of different things. And then my cousin with his workshop opening up, that got me back into it after high school because I had no way to do woodworking after high school. So he was definitely a mentor to me. And then there's also this store, like a tool store that I always go to, and I was really friendly with the owners, and they loved what I did. I actually did a couple demos for their store for the lathe to see if they can drive some lathe sales and other tool sales that they had. Um, so they were good mentors to me. But I mean, my financial advisor, he always gave me good advice for driving things forward and what to do here, tactic wise and financial wise. I've had mentors almost every step of the way that were, um, they saw my drive, they saw my passion, and they kind of molded me and really showed me what I could do here and there to overcome obstacles. So I've had a lot of mentors. I'm definitely grateful for all of them. So it's been a interesting, very interesting decision in life to take this on. I mean, it's been responsible for so many great things that have happened in my life. So yeah, I mean, wouldn't
Nice.
give it up for anything. It's that's the way life goes. You have a lot of choices, a lot of forks in the road, and you got sometimes you got to say, why not? Let's just try something different. It's scary, it's unknown, and you don't know what's going to happen, but sometimes you just got to do it and see what happens, see where it takes you. And by golly, I'm happy where it's taken me. Never thought I'd be here.
Very
So
nice. Yeah, it's great. So yeah, it seems to be just be Juanita for in the comments tonight, which is fantastic. That not nothing against her, but it just seems kind of funny. But
yeah,
this was kind of like weird, like I didn't promote it enough in advance because it was like, oh yeah, I got to do this thing and everything else. But
they'll still be able to see the recording of it. So
yeah, I mean it'll go back and it'll be a live chat replay, and I don't I tend to not rely on the first like day of upload. It like all of my stuff does well like a couple of months down the road.
yeah, yeah. Well, it sits there in the YouTube realm or internet realm and does its thing. Yeah.
Yeah. She did mention KJ Magnetics, which I don't know if that's a brand name, possibly somewhere you can get other magnets. I don't know. It's
Huh?
just in there. Sheep and wool festivals. I'm not really just.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Sheep and Wool Festival is a I've heard of that many, many times, and I know people have had great success there, and it's one of those shows I haven't tried. Um,
Uh, she's bugging you to make drop spindles.
yeah, I do remember her asking me that at one point. Just haven't gotten around to it. That's the thing. People ask me for stuff all the time, and then sometimes I get it done right away. Other times I'm just like, it's not that I don't want to do it. It just doesn't happen. So nothing. Yeah, definitely don't feel offended. It just sometimes things happen. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah. Oh, she said that's where she gets her magnets from. It's KJ Magnetics. So.
KJ Mag. I haven't heard of that one, but I actually have a personal relationship with a guy from I think it's like Thackeray Magnets, something like that. And I buy 1,200 of those magnets at a time. So that's the thing I've learned is when you buy product or supplies, I just buy a literal bleep load of them at a time. So
I tell you what's funny. She said she buys 30 to 60 each.
yeah,
Not,
I'm buying thousands.
I tell you what it just suddenly reminded me of was in Batman Begins when they're like, oh, we order these parts and these parts and we put it together ourselves. Like, well, how big should the orders be? And Alfred goes, oh, 10,000.
Yeah, because there's gonna come a day where you're really busy and you're in the thick of doing orders and making stuff for shows
Reach
that
for a magnet.
you run out of something, and you literally have an oh my god moment where you realize that you're gonna be I could have made 100 pepper grinders and I don't have the tops to put on them to make them into pepper grinders. I'm like, well, I just made 100 pepper grinders for nothing, and I won't have them this weekend, so I lost X amount of money just in that alone, and I've been there. So I always make a point to buy way more than I need, and when I get low, I buy a lot of again, and so sometimes I just have so much of something, but I always use it up, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, I got that wrong. She's her drop spindles. They cost 30 to 60 each. So I guess it's in your price range of something.
Yeah, yes, they would be. But
I don't even know what a drop spindle looks like, so I didn't even.
to be honest, I don't really know either. I'd have to do a Google search on that to figure what it looks like. So I don't know.
All
But
right. Well, kind of wrapping things up here for this evening. I'm curious if you have any sort of final advice for any kind of first time creator or aspiring artist.
oh, the biggest thing is you may not know what you're getting yourself into until you're way into the thick of it, and then you may not realize until that point if you're like, oh, I really like this, or oh my god, I hate this. So that's the only unfortunate part about this, about making your own business, doing a YouTube channel, doing anything on your own, which ends up turning into its own job where you become self-employed, is you just don't know what it's going to turn into. You don't know where it's going to take you, you don't know where it's going to lead you. It's a lot of unanswered questions, and unfortunately, you just until you do it, you won't know what it'll be. So for a lot of people, it's not an option because you have to have a financially stable foundation under yourself, and that's totally viable, and I get that. But if you're in a position where you have, even if you have a job that's stable and you can do it on the side, I mean, that's probably the best way to do it. But I mean, I didn't do it that way. I did it with nothing, and I had the gracious support of my mom and my rest of my family who let me basically live rent free and experiment as much as I wanted to, which I'm eternally grateful for. But those days are long behind me. As soon as I started making actual money doing this, that's when they like, all right, you got to figure this out now. You're on your own. Um, it's it's a very unknown path, but I think the biggest thing is if you love what you're doing, while you're doing it, that's a big indicator that you're doing something right. and you just got to keep the passion going no matter what. I mean, even if you fall out like I did with my art channel and completely put it on the back burner and almost give it up, doesn't mean it's the end. It doesn't mean that it's gone forever. It could evolve into something else, which is exactly what happened with me. So there's many paths where one idea you have can lead you. So you kind of have to, you can work a couple different ways, but I like to work with a loose guideline of what I want things to be, kind of lighten the reins. And if your business or your idea wants to take you one direction, just go in the direction that it's taking you. Follow the path of least resistance and see where it goes. And if you need to get back on track and fight uphill for a little bit, then hey, that's what you got to do. This entire year, by the way, has been an uphill battle, so that's definitely a good example of that. But I'm definitely a go with the flow type of guy, and my business definitely follows that that mindset completely. So at the end of the day, you just kind of see where it goes. You never know. Your biggest success and happiness in life could be one idea away from taking you down a rabbit hole of fun and goodies. So we'll see.
All right. Well, that wraps up my questions. So any thing you want to plug at this point, website, where they can find your work, any of that kind of stuff, go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, so for right now, I mean, with all the woodworking that I do, you can find me at good grief, treesofdreams.com. I was because we're talking about all the different names that I had. I'm like, wait, what's my name right now? So yeah, treesofdreams.com, and then you can also find me on Etsy as well. I have a shop on there that I'm trying to get back up and running with this year because I don't have too many shows going. So if you take my name, Trees of Dreams, on Etsy, you'll find me on there as well. Also, if you go on my website, you'll see a Etsy link, so you can go right to there. But that's where you'll find a lot of my stuff if you're interested in seeing what I do and maybe finding some nice gift for the holiday season. So that's what I do.
All right. Well, for those guys here watching on YouTube, thanks so much for joining us. It was a pleasure sitting down with you again, Tyler, after, I mean, I've talked to you before then, but I mean, after all this time in terms of YouTube stuff. Again, thanks guys for watching. Keep on creating, and I will see you guys next time.